Welcome back, movie fans, to Hollow Victories, the only place where the vote is worse than the US presidential election. I'm your host, Matt Presents, joined as always by my American co-host.
Hello, my name is Makal. You might know me for my documentaries such as The Legacy of Stupid Mario Brothers.
Now, you've explained this on the show before, but your, the Makal Shadackle name does kind of relate to Michael Moore?
Yes, it does. Because I heard, just as a quick recap, I heard the name Macklemore before, and I thought it was funny because I thought it was just someone saying Michael's Moore's name in like a silly voice. Like, I thought it was someone making fun of Michael Moore, then I found out it was a rapper. But I just thought the idea of, changing the name Michael to Mackle sounded really goofy. So I was like, yeah, I'm Mackle. Then I rhymed it with a nonsense word, which I do from time to time.
Earlier today, I called you Michelle Deschanel. The gender-swapped Makal Shadackle. Anyways, today we got a semi-political, I would say somewhat political matchup. It is focused on famed liberal documentarian Michael Moore. After his first film, Roger and Me, in 1989, he made a narrative comedy film with John Candy in 95 called Canadian Bacon. And then, of course, in 2008, we got An American Carol, a film from previous Zucker-Abrams-Zucker collaborator David Zucker.
Yes.
Who made An American Carol, a film making fun of Michael Moore. So it's the Michael Moore comedy versus the anti-Michael Moore comedy.
Yeah, it's funny because I went to the store right before we recorded. We watched the second movie today, and as I was at the checkout, a political ad started playing over the speaker or over the radio or whatever, and the cashier was just like, "Oh, I can't wait for the election to be over." And I just laughed and said, "Yeah, no, 2 more weeks." But I was just thinking in my head, I'm the one who has to go home and talk about a Michael Moore movie and a movie making fun of Michael Moore right after this.
What's your connection to Michael Moore? Have you seen anything beyond Bowling for Columbine?
I saw this movie called Canadian Bacon recently.
Okay.
I watched Bowling for Columbine in high school. I did like it. I had a it was a government class, and he showed a Michael Moore movie, Bowling for Columbine. He also showed he did show movies from both sides, though. He showed us a conservative movie, he showed us a Democrat movie. He wanted to he wasn't there. It was actually I remember liking the class because it was pretty much okay, here's what everyone actually believes, here's what what the different views are. There was no pointing you in one direction. It was quite literally this is what people are like, the class. And I did like Bowling for Columbine. I don't have much of an opinion on Michael Moore. I remember him being made fun of in the South Park episode. I think it was called The 1%. I don't remember what the episode was. I don't remember the title of the episode, but it was making fun of a lot of the stuff happening on Wall Street at the time. It was also this episode about Cartman learning to get rid of his toys, which was honestly the more endearing side of that episode.
Yeah, the South Park guys probably will come up in this episode. I'm kind of mixed on Michael Moore. I like some of his films. I generally agree with the things he has to say. Not always, but generally I agree with him. I think he's a compelling storyteller. I think he keeps audiences engaged, and I think there's a reason he has some of the most successful documentaries of all time. That said, I kind of don't like some of his movies. I don't like Bowling for Columbine. I saw that one in college, and even then I was kind of not into it. Because I feel like he introduces a topic, he builds on that topic, and you're like, okay, where you going with this? And right about the time you think he's gonna get to the point, he doesn't make a point, and he just introduces some new topic and riffs on that for a while. I feel like there's no core thesis to the movie. I feel like his films often lack any sort of policy behind them, weirdly enough. I feel like there's no indication of what we, the audience, should do. Because even Bowling for Columbine, it's it's the famous gun control movie. he doesn't advocate for gun control in that movie. Not once does he bring up gun control as like an option in that movie.
My biggest issue with the movie when I saw it in high school, and you have to keep in mind, high school Michael is not the same Michael I am now. My opinion on the movie could be very different now. The conservative movie we had to watch in that class, I don't remember if I agreed with anything in that or not. I don't remember that movie. I don't remember what it was about. I remember we watched it. Like, that's it. Bowling for Columbine at least stuck with me. But I'll say this much. One part that even as a high school student, I rolled my eyes at is he really pats himself on the back because there's this part where they're trying to get ammo because you could buy bullets at a certain store. I think it was Target. And it wasn't even Target in every state. It was just like, I think he got a single state to stop selling ammo at a Target. And he like really pats himself on the back for that. And even as a high school student, I'm like, I mean, on one hand, I guess you could say it's like when you actually make an effort, you can make somewhat of a difference. And I guess technically that is a difference. But I was like, you did not fix anything at all by doing that. People can still buy their ammunition. People can. I'm not saying like obviously he wasn't going to make this movie where he solved the gun crisis, but like it was just like there was a certain amount of patting himself on the back in that movie that I rolled my eyes at, where I was just like, you didn't really make much of a difference with this. It's a good movie to bring up certain points to make people think about things, and he did bring up some things that I like didn't actually know about. Again, I was in high school at the time. So I appreciate it for that. I also just think that inherently movies about horrible tragedies like that are interesting, especially because when I was in high school, there wasn't a fucking mass shooting every week, which is depressing. This is going to be a sad episode.
I do think he's a little conceited. But yeah. I also like, I don't know, I hate to hold Michael Moore up as like some bastion of the left wing, but he at least sat to the left of the Overton window, and it was nice to have like in the time he was making films, it was nice to have someone to the left of the Overton window in the media who would say the things that even like the liberal media was scared to go after.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's someone who put his opinion out there despite the fact that it probably wasn't going to be well received by a lot of people, and I do have a certain level of respect for that.
Sure, I respect the hell out of him for that, like, Oscar speech he gave where he, like, condemned the Iraq War and got played off immediately. Because, like, it's weird to talk about today because to, like, people our age, the Iraq War has almost always been controversial. When it started, it was popular.
Mm-hmm.
Even the liberals were kind of on board with that war, and then when Michael Moore, like, came out against it, they played him off
so,
at the Oscars.
I don't have, like I said, I don't have the strongest opinion on Michael Moore, but I also, from what I've seen of him, I don't despise the guy or anything. I know a lot of people hate him. But
yeah, I don't love him, but I don't hate him either.
I might hate him if I saw all of his stuff, though. If I saw everything he had out there. I think Bowling for Columbine was a fairly reasonable documentary, and Canadian Bacon was mostly just a boring movie for me.
Well, I was about to say Bowling for Columbine might be the worst movie I've seen, but I take that back. It is definitely Canadian Bacon. But I do like Roger and Me. Roger and Me is a good documentary.
I'll check it out.
Introduce this first movie for us.
Canadian Bacon, directed by Michael Moore, was released in 1995, and God, it's going to be a little hard to explain it, because like I said, this movie mainly just bored me, and a lot of it has left my head since I've watched it, but it's
also kind of all over the place.
It really is. Basically, it's just America is trying to paint Canada. Jesus Christ, that's how my friend Pinsek intentionally mispronounced it as a joke when I was younger. Canada, they're just trying to like start shit with them so that can be like an enemy that Americans can point at, and they start going to like they're trying to start to go to war with Canada. But and it's a movie with a lot of like comedic misunderstandings where a lot of Americans become more and more convinced that Canada is this huge threat that's going to end life in their country. Go ahead.
It's mostly Alan Alda as the president, like, trying to start at least a Cold War with... I don't think he actually wants to, like, invade Canada, but he wants to start a Cold War to sort of boost his position in the polls.
Yeah, and then John Candy and his buddies are the ones actually crossing over to try to take action, take matters into their own hands. Yeah, I mean that it's kind of hard to summarize the movie because you're right, it is so all over the place. There, I don't know. It's
Both of these movies are kind of unfocused. This one
yeah.
in maybe a more like conventional 80s 90s comedy kind of way.
It kind of feels like with both movies, they're more focused on the jokes they want to tell than the story they want to tell.
Yeah, no, that's true of both of these, absolutely.
And yeah, I didn't love this movie. What did you think of it, Matt?
I mean, it's probably on like the upper end of stuff we've talked about in terms of just like objective quality. Like it's a decently made, decently acted film.
There were some shots I liked. The waterfall, as there were some shots with that waterfall at the start I thought looked really nice. I don't know.
The cinematographer on this movie is like a legit cinematographer. He's done like some really big movies. Hold on, I'm pulling it up now. Haskell Wexler, who was the cinematographer for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Oh shit.
along with like a couple other like big classic movies.
If you said that when we were watching, I forgot that. I kind of vaguely might remember you saying that now.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, then I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's a
You might
that's a fucking
might be thinking
masterpiece.
you might be thinking of when we watched Cool as Ice and we're like, oh yeah, the cinematographer worked on Schindler's List.
Oh yeah, that was an old episode.
So I mean, yeah, there's like stuff going for this movie. I even got laughs, but mostly it's like,
I got laughs.
what are we doing?
I was bored. I wanted it to end.
I don't know that I was really bored by it at any point,
Both of these
but
were short.
I also didn't find it particularly engaging. True, both of these were short. Gotta love that.
Oh my god! If both of these went on for like 2 or 2.5 hours, this would have been a way more miserable experience. The fact that they were both short does both of them a lot. They would both be lower on my fucking rankings right now. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like I'll say this much. I know it's a little bit early to be comparing the two, but Canadian Bacon I definitely laughed at less. But I will say it didn't like it did. There wasn't really a point where it made me angry. Where I feel like An American Carol did. But American Carol I laughed at more. Like I thought a lot of the visual jokes in that one worked. With this one, it just not a lot was working for me. I love John Candy, and I kind of like him in this too, just because I feel like it's kind of hard not to like John Candy.
Yeah. I don't know, I think the political satire in this one is like a little better. It's a little more direct. It kind of knows what it's trying to do. It does kind of fall in line with like a trend of like there were a bunch of films from like when Bill Clinton was president about the president, and like all of them kind of commenting on like Bill Clinton as a president.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of reminds me of like Wag the Dog, which is also about like a president trying to like whip up support for a war to like make himself more popular. Although that was a little more serious than this. This was a little more wacky than that film.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was like the era of like Independence Day, Air Force One, the American president, primary colors. So there were a lot of like, ooh, President Clinton and what he's up to movies. And I mean, this was an earlier one.
Yeah.
It also, I'll tell you what it reminded me of, and maybe we should talk about the way this film depicts Canada. But there were parts of this film that reminded me of it's not even a movie I've seen, it's just a movie I've heard of called The Canadian Conspiracy, which was like a joke made for TV movie about how like Canadians control the film industry because of how many like famous Canadians there are. Incidentally, John Candy made the poster for that movie since he is famously Canadian. I don't like somehow I was led to believe that his character was supposed to be like a Canadian immigrant in this film and that was a plot point, but that was not true. I don't know why I thought that.
I'd say ultimately the movie that it reminds me of is going for something different, but at the same time they're both largely satires of America that involve Canada. South Park, bigger, longer, uncut, but where South Park is like, I think the movie is like one of the most genius comedies ever made.
Oh yeah.
This one's just so forgettable. Like once we're done talking about it, it's out of my head. Like I already forget things about it.
Yeah.
And even though like that one isn't so much focused on the American government as it is just focused on Americas in general and what their mindset is, just the idea of like like literally the song Blame Canada ends on the line, we must blame them before someone thinks of blaming us. Like that's kind of what that one's going for. So they're very different, but there's a lot of the same basic ideas there.
Yeah, and bigger, longer, and uncut, definitely a better movie than this.
It's like a 10 out of 10. This is like maybe a 4 out of 10 for me. Because it's not horrible. It's not atrocious. But
yeah. Incidentally, we talked about this a little. Matt Stone has worked with both of these directors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Matt Stone was in Bowling for Columbine, which actually kind of led to he and Trey Parker's beef with Michael Moore. And David Zucker directed Basketball.
Yes. Which honestly, I probably liked more than both of these, despite not liking it that much.
Yeah, Matt Stone has worked with both these directors.
Yeah. Those two have had an interesting career when you think about it. When you like really like pile up all the stuff, because they were both in this film as not yet rated. Fucking Trey Parker in a Illumination movie. Now they're making a movie with like what's their like newest one gonna be? Like what rapper are they working with? I forget.
Kendrick Lamar?
Yes. And I know that they're like more producers on that. I don't know how creatively involved they are with that one, but
yeah, no, it's like mostly Vernon Chapman's movie, and I'm excited for that because Vernon Chapman is fucking wild.
That's a good sign too.
Creator of Xavier Renegade Angel and What
Hell
Was
yeah.
Chosen.
Hell yeah. I've been watching that more lately.
They've done a lot of weird stuff over the years beyond just South Park. Even just South Park is weird, but like then you stack on like, oh yeah, they have like a really well received musical, and they've made a bunch of other movies.
Yeah. They had that deep fake show that they were doing where they only made one episode of, but I liked it. I thought it was funny.
There was more than one episode of that, I think, but it was funny. I really liked that show.
Was there? Because there was like, here's the thing, there was one full episode, and then they released that single episode as a bunch of clips.
Maybe.
If there's a second one, I'd like to see it.
I don't know. I remember there being more stuff going on. And they made Team America where they blow up Michael Moore, and it's a better insult to Michael Moore than an American Carol.
American Carol's
even
jabs.
Even though they barely say anything about him.
American Carol's jabs at Michael Moore felt very high school level. Like, we have to make a bunch of references to the fact that he's an overeater. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, let's put that one in our back pockets. We'll talk about an American Carol in a second. Canadian bacon. Let's talk about the way they could depict Canadians in this. Because, like it's supposed to be, like, mostly a satire on America, but I feel like they get weirdly stereotypical with their Canadian depiction, too. And I think that kinda hurts the movie. Like, maybe if they had really leaned into the, like, oh, Canadians are nice thing, that is, like, the one thing I think they can do. But they have a scene where, like, John Candy says Canadian beer sucks, and it starts like a riot at a hockey game.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
I normally do not look at the votes, the audience votes, because I like that part to be a surprise, but I was just so fucking curious with this one. So while we were watching American Carol, I just quickly looked at your channel, and I voted to see what the poll was. I wanted to see, because it actually got it got like 50-something votes. And I did see which one was in the lead. I won't spoil that right now. But, although it's very fucking close, holy shit. But the, one of the comments was someone going on about, like, the Canadian stereotypes, yeah. Talking about, like, kind of the racist depiction of it, but...
Yeah.
So it definitely has a reputation for that, at the very least.
Yeah, this movie is, like, kind of weirdly remembered a little bit. It was kind of popular in the 90s.
I mean, they got some... I think having John Candy on helps it a lot with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, honestly, like, I had heard of this movie. I didn't know it was a Michael Moore movie until, like, probably this year.
It's also John Candy's final movie, which is kind of crazy.
It is. That's wild to me.
Not a good one to go out on, as much as I love the guy.
Yeah, no, not really.
But I mean, he was good in it. I think his character in it works, because he is kind of this, like, satire of, like, extreme conservatism, but he's not completely unlikable either. He's kind of,
Yeah.
his bond with his little group, like, and him going out to save Honey, like, that's, yeah, I liked him. I know I'm supposed to be against him, but I liked him.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what John Candy's good for, I think.
Likability, yeah.
Yeah. You cast him as, like, not the best person, but because he's John Candy is still kind of like, I think that's why he's great in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh yeah.
Like, you kind of get the, like, oh yeah, this guy's annoying, you don't want to be around this guy, but by the end you're like, fuck, I love this dude, man.
Yeah, because in this one he plays, like, he does, like, work as this extremist, but it's also, like, so much of it's built on him being naive, where I feel like in American Carol, all the characters are so a matter of fact, where this one, it's like, there is a bit of nuance to him in this movie. Like, nuance is the number one thing I think in American Carol is missing, It is
for sure.
Very, very straightforward. This is how things are. These people are the bad guys. These people are the good guys. Where Canadian Bacon isn't quite like that. It has this, like, conservative character. He is being made fun of. Michael Moore is using that for his commentary, but they still make a character.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe we should get into, like, the casting here, since we're already talking about John Candy.
I can't help it.
I mean, yeah, no, he is, like, central to the movie. I think this movie would be significantly worse with, like, someone not as good in the role. Like, for example, Chris Farley's brother. If he were in this role, I think it would be a much less enjoyable film.
Yeah.
Is he the second Spaceballs actor we've had on the show? Because I know we had Stephen Tobolowsky.
He probably is. You would know better than I do.
I think he's the second. I think this is the second time we've had a Spaceballs actor on. That surprises me a little bit, but not that much. But I mean, John Candy, like, absolutely a highlight of the film.
I'd be surprised if he shows up on Hall of Victories again. It might happen, but
I think he is in some, like, not that great stuff, but I don't know, we'll see. Like, he could and he could not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do we have any returners in this?
We have one returner. It's Wallace Shawn making his third appearance, actually. But he is in one scene he's in one shot of this movie
during the credits. Before the credits.
Yeah, he's the Canadian Prime Minister, and during the scene where they're like, here's what happened to all the characters, he pops up as the Canadian Prime Minister, even though he has not been in the film at all up to that point.
I love Wallace Shawn because, of course, I know him for his voice acting. But then there's Princess Bride, where he's like a highlight of that movie. And then there's just stuff that he appears in that really throws me off, including this. But like he was in an episode of BoJack, and that was hilarious. He was in Marriage Story, which really threw me off, but he was good in that too.
Have you seen My Dinner with Andre?
No, I need
really
to.
Should.
I love the Community episode that parodies it.
It's really good. It's really good.
God, I'm going to be up a little late tonight. Maybe I'll watch that one.
All right, I recommend it pretty highly. Alan Alda as the president, I think, is funny.
He did it. Yeah, I think most of the performances in this are pretty solid, actually.
Oh yeah, no, pretty good performances in this film. Of course, Alan Alda famous for playing Hawkeye on MASH, so it's the MASH guy. He's the president now.
I think he had like an awkwardness to his performance that was pretty fun too.
Yeah, I like him. He was also in Marriage Story.
Oh, I don't remember.
And I
was he the lawyer
him in that? He's the first lawyer.
That guy's great. Oh, I do love that character. I love that. Yeah, he was great in that.
And I was just like, whoa, Alan Alda in a movie in 2022? Holy shit. I almost forgot. Rhea Perlman,
Funny.
returning actress.
Really? Who'd
She
she
was
play?
she was one of the ugly stepsisters in My Little
You.
Pony.
That's what you told me. Like the fact that you gave me when we were watching these. Yes, I remember you saying
Yes,
that.
she was in My Little Pony. It's weird how many actors in My Little Pony have reappeared on the series.
I think she was funny in this, and she also just looked the part. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, perfect casting. You got Kevin Pollak as like the president's advisor, and he's like a character actor who just like shows up and stuff, but I always kind of like seeing him.
Yeah, I like him.
He's
The Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects is probably the thing he's best known for. But I enjoy any time he like shows up in something. And he's pretty fun in this. He's like the president's advisor who used to sit on the board of like this big company, and now like that big company has become like a problem for national security. Because we didn't even touch on this. There's like a whole weird thing going on where like the big tower in Toronto has like a place that if you put in the codes could launch all of America's missiles, and then someone shows up and does put the codes in, so they're about to launch all of America's missiles, and it's only because of Rhea Perlman and John Candy accidentally stopping it that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's something introduced at like, you know, the 59th minute, where like what like the most of the movie is done before that shows up.
I honestly think my favorite joke with him was like the text joke at the end where it said he got a life sentence and served 8 months. I'm saying, honest to God, I talked about how much this movie bored me, but there's jokes from it I remember. I gotta give it that.
For sure.
Like, I think it's just that there's big gaps in between the parts that I enjoyed,
Yeah, no,
because it is kind of, it does kind of.
There's definitely fun moments and fun characters, but it's like they really make you wait for like the humor.
I gotta say, Rip Torn is someone that you have kind of given me an appreciation for, because I didn't even recognize who he was until you showed me Freddy Got Fingered for Sickest Shit You Ever Saw. And I really liked him in that. I thought he was really funny in Freddy Got Fingered. And then we watched him in this, and I thought he was good in this too. And then I'm like, I gotta watch more of this guy's shit.
He's this like crazy military general in this, and that's like the perfect role for Rip Torn. Have you seen Men in Black?
Only the sequel, and I didn't like the sequel, but I hear most people say the second one is the worst one.
The second one is definitely the worst one. Like, easily the worst one. I haven't seen the third one since it came out in theaters, so I couldn't say how good or bad it was. I remember liking it, but that was also, like, 2010.
Yeah.
But, Men in Black 1, great movie. Great movie, and Rip Torn has a pretty good role in that.
I should watch that, too.
Alright, Matt's recommendations.
I do, like, he was in Hercules. I don't remember who he voices in Hercules, but I will say that's like my Disney guilty pleasure. People like badmouth Hercules. I love how goofy that movie is. I actually think it's like a fantastic Disney film.
He's Zeus, actually.
Oh, really?
Which is great role for him.
Yeah, Zeus was a great character. I love, fuck off. I don't know. I'm not saying it to you because I don't know how you feel about that movie. Hercules was great.
Hercules I consider like above average, but like not that great.
It is a movie that's more focused on being goofy, but it does have those sentimental moments still, but it's mostly just, it's a comedy. It's Disney doing a comedy, and I love it.
I don't know, I've definitely heard people who like love that movie.
Because I liked it when I was a kid, and then I rewatched it a few years ago because I was like, I don't remember this movie at all, and then I watched it and I'm like, oh, I do like this movie. All of the songs are catchy as hell. And it's really funny, and that's all it's trying to be.
Lindsay Ellis, I think, described it as, like, less than the sum of its parts, and I'm like, I kind of agree with that, because, like, there's a lot of stuff here I like, but the movie's still kind of
When it comes to what they put out in the 90s, it's one of the weaker ones, but that's for fuck's sake, it was going up against Aladdin, it was going up against Lion King. Like, of course, it's weaker than those two.
Better than Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Who else we got on here?
Jim Belushi.
Jim Belushi makes a minor appearance. This is his first appearance, right?
I think so.
We haven't talked about a Jim Belushi movie before. I mean, he's only in one scene, and I do think it's kind of funny that where we're going to this reporter for the first time since the incident, and he, like, takes a moment to apologize for this incident we get no elaboration on.
Yeah, it's a pretty small part.
Kevin J. O'Connor, kind of, like, decently known actor. He's been in a lot of stuff, I'm sure, in, like, mostly minor roles, but, like, he is well known. He was, like, pretty prominent in There Will Be Blood, actually.
I gotta watch the one. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. That's, like, his most beloved movie, I think. But I haven't watched it. I watched, like, 20 minutes of it and fell asleep. Not because it was bad, because I was tired.
I probably like Boogie Nights more than that one, but I'm also a pervert, so...
Boogie Nights is wonderful. Punch Drunk Love is my favorite, but I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson's one of those directors...
Punch Drunk Love is really good, too.
He's one of those directors where everyone's gonna have a different... Like, almost all of his movies could be seen as a favorite. Magnolia is close to my favorite. I just think that it's
Magnolia is really good.
The Master is my least favorite of his, and I love it. Like, I just need to watch it again because I had a hard time following it my first time. But I still ended it with, like, yeah, that was really good. I think a little of that one went over my head. But Synecdoche, New York went over my head the first time I watched it. Then I rewatched it and loved it.
Yeah.
That's not one of his movies. That's just a hard-to-follow movie.
Yeah. But I like the character of Roy Boy, because, like... He's like, because the movie starts talking about all, like, these auto factory workers who've been laid off, which is, like, a consistent theme among Michael Moore's filmography. That's what Roger and Me is about. All like the auto factories closing. Although in this film, it's a munitions factory. The Civil War has ended, and we don't need this many munitions, so. Like, the munitions company is closing, and they're having a big blowout sale, and everyone's buying bazookas and shit. But, like, the cops pull up, and they're, like, trying to stop him from, like, committing suicide, and then he just hangs out with them the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I forget the name of the movie. There's this movie I watched with my dad once, and I think it was more of, like, an anthology film. Like, it had several stories in it, but one of them involved, like, these two police officers. They arrest this guy, but they're like it's not like a really ugly arrest or anything. It's just they don't even like cuff the guy. They just put him in the car because he's causing a problem. And then for the rest of the movie, just this convict is hanging out with the two police officers. Like, he never leaves the car. The guy also, and it's not so much because of his actions. It's more so just because of the performance. Really reminds me of a character from that Edgar Wright TV show. What was it called? Spaced? What was
Spaced.
It called? Where you probably know which one I'm talking about too, right? Like, there's the really eccentric artist guy. Like, they just look so similar. This guy looks a little bit like more trashy, where the other guy isn't. Like, he's more of like the weird artist guy, where this guy looks more like a homeless guy. But yeah, they have like the same, like, they have a very similar personality. They're just, their actions are very different.
Bill Nunn as the Cabral Jabbar. The black police officer.
I wasn't really that into the jokes they made with his character.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it boiled down to just like, haha, you're black.
Yeah, and like, it almost feels like with Michael Moore, a lot of the jokes were supposed to be like anti-racism jokes, you know, but I just feel like it...
Yeah.
I feel like it just came off as awkward. I feel like it was well and meaning, but it came off really awkward and not how he probably meant it to come off.
Yeah. But I mean, good actor.
Yeah, I mean, he delivered it as well as he could.
Famous for playing Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing.
I still haven't seen that one.
A film that has an equal, like deep, complex political themes as Canadian Bacon. These are two movies on like pretty equal level in terms of like the brilliant politics, the really nuanced politics they present.
I've only seen 2 of Spike Lee's movies, and I liked both of them, but I haven't seen... That's like his most popular one, isn't it?
It is.
I've seen Black Klansman, which is really good, but then also saw She's Gotta Have It, which is honestly my favorite of the 2. not that much of an honor since I've seen 2 of his movies, but I really like She's Gotta Have It. But yeah,
Do the Right Thing is great. I love Do the Right Thing.
I will watch it. It's been on my list for a while. I probably should see it. It feels like a pretty significant film.
This is the episode of Matt going, "Oh, that's such a brilliant movie," and Michael going, "Yeah, I should watch it."
Isn't that most of our friendship, though?
Probably. One actor probably worth mentioning, very small cameo, Dan Aykroyd is in this movie. And I feel like he could show up again. I feel like Dan Aykroyd is a guy who has more than one Hall of Victories appearance in him.
Who is he again?
He's just like a cop who shows up for like a joke because they have all this like anti-Canadian graffiti on their truck, and John Candy's like, "Oh, how did that get there?" And he's like, and it's basically a rehash of the joke from like Life of Brian, where he has to write Romans go home 100 times on the wall. Because Dan Aykroyd, he's just like, "Oh, well, Canada, we got 2 official languages, so you need to have all of this markage in French as well." So he makes him go in and do all the graffiti again, but in French.
Allow me to go off topic again ever so briefly. Google Casting is broken. Because I always look at the Google Cast. I don't know what you might look at IMDb or whatever, but I
use Letterboxd.
Oh, that's probably the best one to use, honestly. But Google Casting's broken because like they always do this thing where if someone's significant enough, they get credited before everyone else, which makes sense. Like Michael Moore is the second credit on the Google list, even though he's a cameo. But it makes sense. He's the director. He's a well-known director for controversial reasons. But then Dan Aykroyd isn't even listed here, and you would think based on the way that it normally works, which I'm assuming it's more of an AI than anything else, he should be like the third or second person or even first person credited based on how Google does things.
He is uncredited in the movie.
That's interesting. Like the like Bill Hader got like put on Google Casting for Ralph Breaks the Internet despite not being credited in the actual movie. And then I remember during Lightyear, back when we did that episode not too long ago, it just flat out gave false information. Like it said Tim Allen was in the movie, he wasn't. It credited the foreign, I don't even know which foreign voice actor, but it credited a foreign voice actor instead of the actual voice actor. Now they had him on there, but he wasn't the first one credited. Google Casting is just confusing. I think it is just probably an AI, and the AI, fucks up a lot.
Good at its job.
It gets enough correct, but it fucks up every once in a while. It does list John Candy and Canadian Bacon. I'll give it that.
Do you have anything else to say about Canadian Bacon or the people in it?
Not really. It was it's one of the Hall of Victories movies I'll forget, but I think talking about it has helped me appreciate it more because I am realizing more of the jokes stuck with me than perhaps I realized at first.
I remember there's like the old meme of like, oh, take a movie title and replace one of the words with bacon. And I would always be like, oh, well, Cars would be bacon, and Jaws would be bacon, and Canadian Bacon would be bacon.
Yeah.
Anyways,
an American Bacon.
Move on to an American Carol.
An American Bacon.
Bacon. Yeah, you want to move on to an American Bacon?
I'd rather watch a Bacon Carol.
A Bacon Carol. That sounds delicious.
Yeah, let's talk about an American Carol. I've got stuff to say about this.
So, An American Carol is a 2008 film mocking Michael Moore. It's about documentary filmmaker Michael Malone, who makes anti-American documentaries, and he's trying to like cancel the 4th of July because he hates America so much, but then he gets thrust into this, like, he's supposed to be thrust into this, like, Christmas Carol story, but then that, like, barely happens. JFK shows up and is like, ooh, you'll be visited by 3 spirits. But he's visited by General Patton, who takes him through most of the movie. And then, like, at the very end, George Washington shows up for, like, a minute. And then Trace Adkins is the ghost of Christmas future, 4th of July future, the ghost of the future. And he's only there, like, very briefly near the end. They do a really bad job with this Christmas Carol story.
It's a fucking terrible job.
They've also got this story about, like, the Taliban trying to hire Michael Malone to make a movie for them, and maybe also, like, commit a terrorism at the Clay Atkins concert. Trace Adkins. Who gives a shit? Michael, what'd you think of this movie?
I think that at least half of the cast in this that said yes in 2008 would have said no in 2018. I think that there are some jokes that work. I laughed a decent number of times, but almost all of them were visual gags that have nothing to do with the film's politics. And I think that the number one thing I can say that really tells you what this movie's goals are and how nuanced it is and how it wants to explain, not that you have to have nuance. If you want to be straightforward, you can be straightforward, but holy shit, this movie in some scenes. I just want to say that I think the number one thing that I think helps define this movie is it is a movie that features a parody of Michael Moore and Rosie McDonald, but then uses the real Bill O'Reilly.
Yep.
And I think that tells you everything you need to say about it. I think this is a movie that has some things going for it, but the things working against it kill any chance of it being a decent film. The Christmas Carol parody is handled fucking horribly. And it's a movie that was made for people that already agree with the filmmakers. It wasn't a movie that was made to try to persuade anyone. It wasn't a movie that was made to try to make you think about things in a different light. It was a movie for people who already agreed with everything they were going to say going into it. And I, at a point, have to question why they even wanted to make it. I think they wanted to piss Michael Moore off. I think someone watched Michael Moore's movies and got angry. And this is just a really aggressive YouTube comment.
Yeah, but it's so petty and, like, devoid from, like, any actual criticism of Michael Moore that, like, I don't think he even would be offended.
No, they called him fat, like, every scene, so he will be. Because we all know there is not a single fat conservative on the planet. I think there's things in this movie aspects of this movie that are done better than Canadian Bacon, but what doesn't work is Canadian Bacon at its worst, I think, is boring. American Carol at its worst is like, oh, this is one of the stinkers of Hall of Victories.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not here to, like, if anyone has, like, this isn't even, like, it feels like it's unavoidable to make someone unhappy with this episode because it's like we have the Democrat movie and the conservative movie, you know? But I'm sorry, this one is so on the fucking nose. I'm okay with watching a movie with someone on a different political spectrum than me. I'm genuinely okay with that. As long as they have something to say or have something interesting to do or something entertaining or whatever. This movie, it, like, has a little bit of that, because again, I do like some of the jokes, but
I mean, it's a David Zucker movie. He still manages some, like, wacky visual gags and slapstick humor.
Yeah, pretty well too. I mean, not all of them work. There's actually some slapstick that I thought was shit. But like the part where there's the two Muslim characters that, like, one keeps abusing the other, and some of those are kind of funny, but then there's the one with, like, what are those things called at, like, when you're trying to get through, like, security, the things that kind of turn, he, like, starts smacking him in the face.
Turnstile?
Yeah, the turnstile. There's a scene where he smacks him in the face with that, and the way they shot that was just so awkward and fake. Like, that gag didn't work at all. But then there's, like, a shot with him, like, consistently shoving his face into soup and pulling him back up, and then, like, when he's about to do it again, like, he's about to replace his bowl with a different bowl, he says, no, wait a second. They switch the bowls out and then slap his face in. That was funny. That was a good joke. I like that one. The movie has jokes that I think are funny. There's this part where Michael Moore gets like hit in the face with like a church bell, and then as he's moving around, he gets hit by like two others, and that made me. It kind of reminded me of the Sideshow Bob joke in The Simpsons of him constantly getting hit in the face with the rake. Like that was funny. There's a part where Michael
Sideshow
Moore
Bob is in this movie.
Is he?
Kelsey Grammer's in the movie. He
I
was
didn't.
Patton, remember?
I guess I didn't know who his voice actor was. I don't know much about. I don't know as much about casting as you do, but I feel like I should know that as a Simpsons fan. I did not know who Sideshow Bob's voice actor was.
No, yeah, it's Kelsey Grammer, who is General Patton in the movie.
That's a happy accident then, on my end. I like a lot of the visual jokes in this. I even kind of think Kevin Farley's Michael Moore impression is kind of funny. I just think the issue is because we have to spend a whole movie with him and he has to go through this arc, it doesn't work. But if it was like I mentioned when we were watching this, if this was like a side character in like a BoJack Horseman episode, like a show that had tons of director parodies, tons like both well-known and obscure. Like they have like a I know I'm talking about actors and directors. They had like a Tarantino parody that's like everyone knows who Tarantino is, but then they have Margot Martindale, who's a way more obscure actress. Like they did really well with that. I feel like you could have this version of Michael Moore in one of those episodes for a bit, not for a whole fucking hour and 20-minute long movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've ranted a bit. You go ahead, talk about how you feel about this.
I mean, like, the stuff they level against Michael Moore isn't even, like, accurate, really. Like, mostly it's just like, oh, you hate America, and your, like, weak anti-war stance is gonna, like, cause the terrorists to take over. But they don't even call out Michael Moore for anything specific. Like, there was stuff you could have taken him to task. There were so many, like, anti-Michael Moore documentaries around this time that, like, you could have... There were so many, like, talking points that are in all of those, and this movie addresses none of them. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They love to be like, oh, that scene in Bowling for Columbine where they give him a gun. They weren't actually handing guns out at the bank. They mailed you the gun. That was all staged for the movie. But, like, nothing in this movie is specific to Michael Moore. And when they do, like, talk about specific stuff, they're, like, wrong about it. Like, there's jokes early on about, like, oh, your last movie bombed. No one wants to see your documentaries. But, like, at the time, Michael Moore's most recent film was Sicko. It was $9 million budget against a $36 million box office. That movie was a huge success. You're just wrong.
Yeah.
They make fun of documentaries so much in this movie, and it's like, fuck off.
It feels like often, like, what it's actually criticizing is someone being critical of America. Like, they're taking someone, like, being critical of America. Oh, you hate America. And it really does remind me of that Thanksgiving conversation that this whole episode's kind of a joke about. Like, we're doing 2 political movies for November. The whole, uncomfortable political discussion around Thanksgiving thing. But, like, this is honestly what it feels like a lot of the time, where it's like you say anything critical about America, just trying to make a point, and then everybody points to, like, if you have, like, a super conservative family member, they're going to say, oh, you must hate America, oh, you must be this. It's like, no, that's so obnoxious, because I think that, I do think there's extremists who would hate me for saying this. I think that you can appreciate your country while being critical about other aspects of it. Look, I've lived in America my whole life. There's things I've had a pretty good life. I appreciate a lot about the place I live in. But when I see someone in this country or outside of this country having a horrible experience because of something we did, I think we should be critical of that. And I don't know why that's such a horrible thing to say. And I know I'm speaking, this is an opinion that tons of people have now. This isn't a brave thing to say, but it's like, yeah, like, it's okay you can be critical of America without hating. And there's plenty of people who do just hate America, and that's the end of it. And you know what? That's fine. I'm saying that you can still appreciate aspects of your country while being critical of others. And I think most countries should be like that, because no place on the planet is perfect.
Yeah, and like, Michael Moore specifically is, like, kind of like a bluntly American dude. He does show a lot of patriotism at times.
I
He
remember that
can
from
be
Bowling from
very
Colin.
like, oh, we I love America so much. I just want to see it like be better, you know.
Yeah, and I remember that. I remember that mindset from Bowling from Columbine. He had that in Bowling from Columbine. He does he does make his stance clear. He does clarify in that movie. Because he
Yeah.
doesn't want to give people the wrong impression. Like I don't know. The worst part is it's gotten way more chaotic since this movie came out.
Well, I mean, and that's just when like the movie is talking about like real things. Then there's, you know, the subplot of like, oh, well actually Michael Moore's girlfriend cheated on him with like an army guy, and it like I guess it's kind of supposed to tie into the Christmas Carol thing, but they're already so bad with the Christmas Carol thing that like I don't know why you would
Fucking
bother.
butchered
That just
that.
it just feels like petty and mean. And then, oh my god, the worst fucking scene in this movie. The part where it's just like, what the fuck are you even talking about? They like come back to the present and it's like, oh, you know, Abraham Lincoln, he didn't fight the Civil War, so now slavery is okay. And you, Michael Moore, you're the biggest slave owner. And it's like, what a random like what if thing to throw in this like, ooh, if slavery were still around you would own a bunch of slaves, and it's like, what are you talking about? like like if
It
you're gonna make fun of Michael Moore, at least talk about something real, at least talk about something that is actually happening in real life. What the fuck is this shit?
Oh, it's always a good episode when mic levels are peaking. No, I'm with you. I'm completely with you. I'm completely with you.
Like it gets so fucking petty with like the insults it levels against Michael Moore, and like barely talks about any real stuff he does.
Yeah. Can I I want to mention two times I really rolled my eyes at the left before I talk about how I rolled my eyes at this one. Broad City, great sitcom. I love that show. Very funny. But they had an episode where they had Hillary Clinton come on and play herself, and they tried to make her look like this badass. They tried to make her look cool, and I could not take it seriously. I understand that you wanted her over Trump. I think that's understandable, but it's like, but I just like the fact that they were trying to paint her as this really cool person. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at it. And then cut to the next
Did she
election.
say did she say her classic line, Pokemon go to the polls?
No, and if she did, I wouldn't be bringing this up.
That's what really won me over to vote for her.
Yeah, if she didn't do that, if she did say that in that episode, I wouldn't even be bringing Broad City up as an example. Great show though.
Honestly,
I still recommend
I
it.
think I really think Kamala needs to come out and say Pokemon go to the polls. That would really motivate me to vote for her.
Yeah, no, I think she needs to do that too. And then
I'll vote for Trump if he says it.
and then cut to the next election where we have Jim Carrey playing Joe Biden on SNL. And they did the first time he appeared that he tried to make Joe Biden look like such a badass. And I'm like, oh my God, fuck off. Like, I get it. You're really trying to persuade people against Trump, but I think you actually convince more people voting for Trump when you do that. This movie does the same thing with Bill O'Reilly. And where I'm just like rolling my eyes so fucking hard at it. Like if Bill O'Reilly wasn't in this movie, that would probably give it a whole extra point. Like Bill O'Reilly being in this hurts it so much. Like, oh my God, you made your stance so fucking clear by doing that. You are trying to manipulate people.
That's a scene where even that's another scene where I'm like, what are you even talking about? Because they've got this Rosie O'Donnell parody doing like this like, oh, it's extremist Christian terrorists everywhere. We should be afraid of the Christian terrorists. And even in the movie, even like the Michael Moore character is like, no, what are you talking about? And like, is this even a reference to a real thing? I'm not aware of Rosie O'Donnell making any documentaries. Maybe she did, but like,
I believe she did.
it certainly wasn't this. It certainly wasn't whatever is going on in this scene.
I don't know a lot about Rosie McDonald, but I've heard bad things.
I also do think it's funny that in this matchup where one of the films is like a narrative film made by Michael Moore, the other film is about a Michael Moore stand-in trying to make a narrative film. Like he wants to make a narrative film instead of a documentary, but like no one takes him seriously. They're like, "Oh, you make documentaries. You're the documentary guy." And I'm like, "But he already made a narrative film."
You know what annoyed me about this movie while you bring that up? I actually think there is a joke they could have made about how unappreciated documentary films are. Like, they keep joking about that throughout the movie. Oh, he just made a documentary film. But I think that's a good point. Documentary films should be seen as films. Some of my favorite movies are documentaries. Like Dear Zachary Tickled. There's a ton of great documentaries out there, and they shouldn't be looked down upon for being for being a genre that's more informal than narrative driven. But this movie isn't. That's not what this movie cares about. That's not the point this movie's trying to make.
No,
They're just trying to say fuck you, Michael Moore, and it's like, no, you had an idea for a joke there, but I guess you just value things differently than I do. I don't really know how else to put it. Like, a documentary film should be respected as an actual movie, though.
Yeah, and it's such an unfocused movie. We drift from like idea to idea so vaguely. Like I mean we talk about like the Christmas Carol aspect of it, but like again, that's so little of it because we could just be at any time, at any point in any timeline for whatever scene happens next. There's a scene where like these college professors do a musical number about like wanting it to be 1968 and how like they indoctrinate our kids with all this left-wing bullshit.
I love A Christmas Carol, and I think you do too, because you're writing a whole fucking you're making a whole fucking Spiny Norman comic about it right now. I've been really enjoying. I'm sure it's not going to be a this year thing, and more maybe a next year thing, because it's like all rough sketches right now. But we can talk about that later. Imagine the way that this movie does A Christmas Carol. Imagine if it's like the only thing I was about to say fucking Scrooge McDuck. Jesus Christ! The only thing Scrooge was guilty of was not being there for his family. That's the only dilemma at the start of the film. And then 90% of the spirit, they do have a Jacob Marley. It's not a Jacob Marley that's really connected to the Scrooge in a way where he knew him, but it's someone that he respected. So that's how they do Jacob Marley with John F. Kennedy. But then Spirit 1 is there for 95% of it. Spirit 2 is there for 5 seconds, if that even counts, because I don't know if George Washington is supposed to be Spirit 2 or not. And then the deaf spirit is there for maybe a minute. That's how they did it. I'm not joking. Spirit 1, there most of the movie. Spirit 2, not a whole, not at least not a whole. 5 seconds is exaggeration, but he might not even be there for a whole minute. Spirit 3, and again, I can't tell if he's
probably there for a minute.
Maybe it's a maybe though. It's a maybe though.
Yeah, and then he doesn't even show up at the end. I'm wrong. I'm thinking of JFK shows up at the end.
Bill O'Reilly's there.
Yeah, Bill O'Reilly is there in like the worst green screen ever.
If they made, you know what, the thing is too, if they made a joke where he said, "Oh yeah, I was the second spirit, by the way," that would have at least been a joke, but
because he's like Bill O'Reilly, you're not a spirit. There should have either been a joke about Bill O'Reilly being dead or a joke about him just like walking into the porta potty with Michael Malone.
The first act of this movie doesn't realize that it's supposed to be a Christmas Carol to knock off. The second act.
It's 20 minutes into this hour 22-minute film before A Christmas Carol starts.
Yeah. With the only foreshadow being, oh, we don't like Michael Moore, so he's Scrooge, and oh, he's not that connected with his family. That's it. And then the second act is just this first spirit, and then the third act once again forgets that it's supposed to be a Christmas Carol parody.
Yeah, no, it's barely a Christmas Carol parody, and it's barely focused on anything. Just like out of nowhere, there's a scene where, they go in a courthouse and there's these evil zombies, and he's like, "Oh, they're not people, they're the ACLU." Still a less cartoonishly evil depiction of the ACLU than God's Not Dead 2. But, it's pretty close. There are evil zombies in that one, in this one. in God's Not Dead 2, they're a little more evil. They're a little more cartoonishly evil in that one. That's also the scene where Dennis Hopper shows up, and I'm like, God, Dennis Hopper, you're better than this. Should we
Yeah,
talk about the cast? Are we to the cast yet?
probably about time for that.
Because it's a real who's who of like infamously conservative actors. We mentioned Kelsey Grammer plays General Patton. James Wood has a cameo as Michael Moore's agent.
I didn't even know these guys were conservative actors. I guess that's the thing. I don't really. Most actors are liberal, but I mean, there are like there's popular
There are.
actors conservative. Like Bruce Willis is like I think pretty well known as a conservative. Zachary Levi is in this, and the funny thing is he's getting a lot of
like very very small role, but he is in this.
he's getting a lot of shit this year, and I find that really funny now because like looking back at this, it's like he's getting a lot of shit because people are saying, "Oh, Shazam wasn't popular, so now he's pulling the Elon Musk and being conservative." But this is a good sign he was always like that, and people just didn't realize.
I don't know. I mean, this was before he was really famous, and he's just kind of an extra in this.
It also in 2008 being in a conservative movie isn't nearly as ballsy as again, like I said, 2018. I bet half these people would say no.
I mean, I think probably Kelsey Grammer and like John Voight, who plays George Washington for his very very brief role. Even like Trace Atkins would probably say yes. At the center of this, we got Kevin Farley, Chris Farley's brother, who, I mean, he does kind of look the part for like a Michael Moore parody. He is kind of missing Moore's distinct like Midwest accent.
It's not as good about Michael Moore, like genuinely being Michael Moore, as okay, it's clearly here to mock Michael Moore, but I think that can. I don't think Michael Moore is above being made fun of. In fact, I think considering some of his actions, he should be made fun of. But
Sure.
I think that's why I'm saying be better as a bit, not a full character.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. Like, if this were like some little bit, you know, I probably would have found that a little funnier than him being the main character.
Because Kevin Farley's performance isn't that bad of a comedic performance in this, in my opinion. There's parts where he has Michael Moore acting really pathetic, where I kind of get a laugh at it, not out of like hatred for Michael Moore, because again, I don't know a lot about the guy, but more out of like he's just playing this really pathetic director who, like you can have fun with a pathetic character. Pathetic characters can be really funny, and I don't feel so strongly about Michael Moore that I'm offended that they're making fun of him, but following a whole movie with this guy and him doing a complete 180 on his beliefs, like by the end of it, it's like not just like okay, there's because his beliefs at the end of it aren't like okay, I'm right about some things, I'm wrong about other things. It's like no, he's a full-on patriot by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning it. This film totally lacks nuance, which
It
I think
does.
Canadian Bacon does have a bit of.
I agree, because again, I think it all comes from the two main characters, John Candy and Kevin Farley. John Candy's character has likable aspects to him. In fact, his whole group has likable aspects to them. It is ultimately criticizing that behavior. It is ultimately saying like, "Hey, I don't, this type of behavior is something I don't advocate for." That's something that Michael Moore is clearly stating. But they're all still characters. John Candy's character and Honey, especially. I remember Honey the best because it's just such a it's like an interesting name to give a character. That's why I call her by the character name and not Michael and not John Candy by his character's name. Yeah. Because I remember if I can remember the character's name, I'll say the character's name. If I remember the actor's name, I'll say the actor's name. But yeah, they were characters. This is a caricature and not a good one at that.
Yeah.
But I think in small bits, he gives a good enough performance to where it could work as a little satire, a little jab, not like I'm going to make a feature film based on you.
Yeah, like if this character had shown up for like a bit in Scary Movie 4 and then gotten like shot to death, like I wouldn't have laughed at it, but it would have been better than this whole fucking movie.
Oh, for sure. It's not a good character to follow for a whole film.
No.
even without the horrible message this movie has, it wouldn't be a good character like for that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. A lot of these actors are on like watch for a second appearance because I feel like most of these guys could show up a second time. Kelsey Grammer, maybe not so much. Maybe, but I don't know if he really has a second one in him. He's a good Patton. He's a good choice for Patton. I like Kelsey Grammer. He's kind of like famously not that cool a guy, but I think he's a good actor. I mean, we were just talking about him as Sideshow Bob.
Oh, I mean, and I love his performance on that show, and he's still on that show. They just gave him a Disney Plus short,
Yeah.
so obviously I have a little bit of respect for him too. I don't like modern Simpsons that much at all, though it's been getting better. But Sideshow Bob has always been a fun. Even in bad episodes, the vocal performance is good. Leslie Nielsen, pretty.
Leslie Nielsen. I'm kind of shocked this is his first appearance.
Did you see what his name in the movie is? It's Osama bin Nielsen.
Well, okay, he's the grandpa who's telling this whole story, which is a weird framing device, especially because, like, half the kids are also characters in the story.
It's confusing because I'm like, what point are you trying to make about that? You didn't need this.
Yeah.
You didn't need this like old man explaining the story. You could just have the story. This doesn't benefit it in any way.
Also, he shows up at, like, the auditions for Michael Malone's movie to play, like, Osama bin Laden. I don't know how much Leslie Nielsen agrees or doesn't agree with this. It's probably worth saying David Zucker was, like, a 9/11 conservative. Like, when 9/11 happened, he was like, this is the time for, like, strong, authoritative leadership, and that really pushed him to the right. Because prior to this, he was, like, fairly liberal. Like, a lot of his older, like, Airplane has, like, abortion jokes in it.
I do think it's worth considering the time that these came out, because a lot of people were afraid when that happened. A lot of people were like blinded by fear when that happened. And if you can criticize the people with the fearmongering, I think you can also, at the very least, understand the people who were genuinely afraid and genuinely believe this thing, at least as like their minds changed as time went by.
Yeah.
Because it's a time that we were so young during, and we can look back at like the reaction to that critically now, but I can't say I was very conscious about any of it when it happened. I was like, 5 years old when 9/11 happened?
Yeah.
And I think that's like the one bit of leeway this movie has, is it being 2008. Although even then, 2008 was like 7 years after that happened.
Yeah, it was that. This is like a relic of like the final days of the Bush administration.
Yeah, Obama was about to come in.
It's decidedly of its time.
Mm.
I mean, Michael Moore has certainly left an impact on the film industry. He is not as popular as he once was. Like,
no,
2008 was like around the end of his like heyday as a director.
Well, no one's really making fun of him anymore, and that's part of it. Exactly what you're saying. Like, I never hear Michael Moore get brought up anywhere, because they keep bringing up like, oh, the caricature of him could work in like a BoJack episode, but BoJack was kind of past that point.
Robert Davi is the like head of the Taliban, and this is actually his second appearance.
Hey, welcome back.
He's the sleazy nightclub owner from Showgirls.
Don't remember him, but it makes sense that I wouldn't remember him.
He's the one who shows up at like her big performances and is like, must be weird not having anyone come on you. And then there was also Jeffrey Arend, who was like one of the other terrorists, who I recognize. He's in stuff. He was in 500 Days of Summer and Devil. Like, I've definitely seen him before in things.
I think the way that they portray those characters is the worst part of the nuance in this movie, because it really does like try to ignore a lot of aspects of this point in history.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty blunt, like, the terrorists are bad, they're the bad guys, and we, America, we're the good guys. And if you're opposed to this war, you just want the bad guys to win.
It feels often like the point they're trying to make is that, oh, there are bad people from the Middle East. Yeah, of course there are. There's bad people from here too, though. There's also innocent people over there. There's also innocent people over here. Like, what's your point? Your point isn't very compelling. Your point isn't very strong.
Oh yeah, Kevin Sorbo is like the director who wins the award at that award show he's at.
That scene was one of the better scenes because it kind of just felt like it was making fun of award shows.
Oh yeah. It's got fucking Paris Hilton.
Has she been on this show yet?
It's her second appearance. You remember what she was in? Do you remember what she was in?
Did she play herself?
She has a cameo. She played herself.
No, I don't. I knew she was on the show. I couldn't remember where.
She was in Cat in the Hat.
Oh fucking! Now I remember. Now it's all back.
I had to like click on her on Letterboxd and go, oh yeah, she was in Cat in the Hat. Fuck, I forgot that. Paris Hilton's second appearance.
Paris Hilton could be the queen of the show. She is like,
I mean,
her cameo. It's all of it would be cameos too. It would all be cameos, but
that's not true. I could put some like Paris Hilton vehicles on this show. I just desperately do not want to. National Lampoon's Pledge This is like one of the worst films I have ever seen, and she has a starring role in that. Just like one of the most disgusting movies I have ever seen. I hate thinking about that movie. The Hottie and the Naughty was not as bad as I was expecting it to be, but it was still pretty bad.
One day we really should just do an episode of my least favorite movie versus your least favorite movie.
Hey, it would bring back Kevin Sorbo. He was in Meet the Spartans.
Meet the Spartans is close to my least favorite movie.
It fucking sucks.
I did a 2008 ranking on my Letterboxd while watching this because this was 2008, and it's at the bottom.
It would be.
Lion King 2019 is my least. So Lion King 2019 versus Meet the Spartans next episode. It's such a bad pair up. That's the thing. Like the two movies have nothing in common other than it being our least favorites. I mean, they're both soulless. Yeah. They're both soulless. That's a common feature they have. But even then, Lion King 2019 has some like good people in it that just don't do good in that movie. Isn't Paris Hilton in that, or is she just referenced in that?
Meet the Spartans?
Yeah.
I think she appears as a character, but I don't think she is played by the actual Paris Hilton.
All right. Even Paris Hilton was too big for that.
Yes. Although I think she was in some of David Zucker's other movies. Like she was in some of the Scary Movie movies.
Did David Zucker make Meet the Spartans?
No. He made Scary Movie 3 and 4, and he produced Superhero Movie. I think he was maybe even a writer on that one. But I
haven't seen that one. I remember you and Zach saying it's the best. Friedberg and Seltzer?
Friedberg and Seltzer are the guys that made that. They did not make Superhero Movie, but of all the movies from the 2000s, Superhero Movie is decidedly the best.
And is it still like a 4 out of 10 or higher or lower?
I have it at a 5 out of 10. That might
5.
change if I rewatched it. But
5, like that's fair. I don't think their best movie could hit 6,
Friedberg and Seltzer, I think, do they even have a best movie? Their best movie might be the first Scary Movie, and even that they only wrote for.
I mean, I heard the first Scary Movie is pretty decent. Is it not?
It's fine. The two David Zucker made, Scary Movie 3 and Scary Movie 4, are decidedly better than the first two. Never saw the fifth one.
He's okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, he made some good movies.
Yeah, I mean, he made Airplane and Top Secret, and I love those movies.
Both of those were movie night picks, yeah.
Yeah. Although he made those with his brother, Jerry Zucker, and their friend Jim Abrams.
And
I think Jim Abrams has probably gone on to the best career, because he made the two Hot Shots movies, which were, like, kind of popular. I have no fucking idea. Okay, well, Jerry Zucker directed Ghost and Rat Race. I did not know that until right now.
I do love Rat Race. Rat Race is great.
So David might be at the bottom of that list, actually.
Probably.
Because he made this and Basketball.
Basketball is better than this. Basketball at least has, like...
I haven't seen it.
A lot of it is boring, just like this movie and Canadian Bacon while we're at it are, but when it's it has its highlights, and its highlights I do think put it above those two. Its highlights are mainly Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They're just funny guys. Like, they can give a funny performance.
I looked up a clip for it because you like brought it up in like SSS or something. So all I've seen is the clip of them like standing there drinking beer and shooting baskets with one hand and hitting every single one of them.
I gotta do a screen share when we're done with this to show you another part, but yeah.
Do we have anything else to say about An American Carol?
I think I'm good. They fucked up the parody. The commentary is bad, and there's a couple good funny visual gags. That's it.
Yeah, there's some good jokes that don't relate at all to the political commentary. All right. Well, I believe it's your vote first.
I'm gonna give it to Canadian Bacon, even though I don't like. I feel like there's aspects of An American Carol that are stronger, but nothing in Canadian Bacon is like infuriating to me. Nothing about it like screams like, "Oh, this is the bottom of the barrel of shit we're talking about." What it gets wrong, I think, is like pretty troubling and should be again. Like, this feels like an episode that could like really rile up some people, and I don't. It's not really my intention to do that, but like, come on, this movie clearly isn't interested in actually having a conversation. This movie clearly isn't interested in like doing any clever form of satire. This movie wants to bully someone they don't like, and they do it poorly. Like, I hope that like even if you are a conservative viewer watching this, you can at least understand where I'm coming from with that. This is a movie that really half-assed everything and did a bad job with its commentary. Like, it's this isn't a whole one side is good and one side is evil. This is a movie that wants you to think that. And that's why I'm so critical of it. It's bad. It has some good visual gags. I understand. I don't think it's completely outrageous if you prefer this over Canadian Bacon, but like Canadian Bacon at the very least has a little bit of nuance to it. It doesn't have anything absolutely infuriating in it to me. It's just it's a boring movie versus a movie with like genuinely bad shit in it.
Yeah. I mean, much like this election, I think we have a liberal option that is not good, but has a few things going for it, and a conservative option that is confidently wrong about basically everything, and is also just like weird, petty, and hateful, but does probably make me laugh a little more often. I'm giving this one to Canadian Bacon. And much like the upcoming election, razor thin margin on the vote. This is one of our closest votes. It's 53% for Canadian Bacon. So it is unanimous, but that's close. I feel like we have had some really close ones, but this one is close. I remember I caught a glimpse of it like ahead of our recording, and it was like 50-50 just like a week ago.
I think it's like, what is it, like
47-53.
Yeah, it's really close. And part of that might be my vote, which I don't know which one I voted for. I just clicked on a random one to see the vote. So I altered the votes.
You might have pushed Canadian, but you might be the one vote that pushed Canadian Bacon.
I might have also
American Carol.
I might have also unvoted because I do that. So if I wanted to check, I might have unvoted immediately after. Let me check. I unvoted. So I didn't vote.
Okay. Still, it's probably a margin of 1 or 2 votes on this.
Yeah. Canadian Bacon
Not that
wins.
it matters. You and I outvoted it. Canadian Bacon wins. I will say, like, I've seen a lot of conservative comedies over the years, and most of them are way more focused on being conservative than being a comedy. So, like, at least An American Carol is trying to be funny. At least it's trying to be a comedy film.
There were good jokes. There were some.
It does almost get distracted with the jokes sometimes, because it's like, okay, this is a funny bit. What does this have to do with the story? What does this have to do with the characters?
True. But Matt.
Yeah.
You know there'll be jokes.
That's not gonna be in the recording. No one's gonna know you played that.
You can edit
I'll play it. I'll edit it in. I'll play the soundbite from our fucking channel that you just played me.
one of my proudest achievements is sneaking a New Norm reference into Chris and Olivia's wedding toast.
Anyways, next month, next time on Hollow Victories, it's our Christmas episode, and once again, it's only a half Christmas episode, but this year, it's a half Christmas, half New Year's episode. So it's both movies are relevant. Both hitting both major December holidays with this one. Is New Year's a December holiday? It's kind of a January. Whatever, the two major like winter holidays.
Transition holiday.
Sure. Two Christian movies that for a while were the two lowest rated movies on Letterboxd. They did recently change how their ratings work, so I don't think these are the two lowest rated anymore, but for a while they were the two lowest rated movies on Letterboxd. It's Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas versus 2025 World Enslaved by Virus.
Oh, I'm looking forward for Kirk Cameron Saves Christmas. I still remember the I Hate Everything video on that one.
I think both of these movies are very funny. I also have a very high tolerance for Christian bullshit.
I think I have a high tolerance for it too.
I am looking forward to this one.
All right.
I've been looking forward to this one for a while because I'm like, no, I gotta do 2025 World Enslaved by Virus December of 2024. Perfect matchup. Perfect December 2024 matchup. I've been plotting this one a while.
This is a long episode. I didn't think I'd get a lot out of this one, but no, I definitely had stuff. I was more worried about this episode before we recorded it, but once we started, no, I think this was a solid one.
Hell yeah.
I think I was just this one. I think I was just worried because of the political aspect, but hey, I said what I said. I meant it.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, I'm Matt Presents. For my co-host Makal. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.